Do you remember honey crust bread? I do. My favorite was peanut butter and jelly cut on the diagonal. Join us today on Warren County Preserves as we take a look at the Honey Crust Bakery and the important role it played here in Bowling Green during the Depression. Welcome to Warren County Preserves. I'm Joan Needham. The Honey Crust Bakery was constructed on Adams Street in 1936 near Western Kentucky University and the railroad. From construction to baking to delivery, the bakery played an important role in the community of Bowling Green during the Depression era.
Now, anything being built in Bowling Green or anywhere in Kentucky in the 1930s was a boom for a community, and particularly any kind of business that was going to put people to work. And so they applied for the permit. They did have to get a zoning change because there was a coal yard there, and most of the neighbors were very supportive of having a new business there because this was kind of an eyesore right there on the railroad track. The exciting part about it was the fact that it was putting people to work. And so all of the contractors that were used in building the building were all local. All the stonework came from local quarries. The Southern Cut Stone Company supplied the trim work. All the work that was done inside was done by local contractors. So that was exciting that Bowling Green was having that type of financial income coming from a building also. When it started in 1937, the bakery actually started producing bread. They only employed 36 people, so it wasn't a tremendous payroll boost to the city, but still it was something to boost people's morale during a very difficult time in our country's history and in our city's history too. They also employed a number of men who drove the trucks because this was a bakery that was run by a huge grocery company out of Louisville. And so they had contracts with groceries all over this section of the state. So the bread would go all the way from Bowling Green as far west as Hopkinsville, and as far north as Elizabethtown, and as far east as Somerset. So it covered a huge territory. And so they hired a number of workers. It is called a Honey Crust Bakery for a reason. They made a special type of bread that used fresh milk and honey. And the milk came from dairies in our county. The honey was imported. We don't have a lot of natural honey here. But it was a big boom for farmers in the area too, particularly dairy farmers. It was not a tremendously expensive building when it was built. It was $25,000. That included both the factory and the Hostess House. But it was still well built. And it just so happened that we had a very talented architect who was working for the Southern Cut Stone Company at that time, named James Maurice Ingram. And he was very much into the colonial revival movement in the country at that time, but he also was experimenting with Art Deco and streamlined modern structures. And it seemed interesting to me that these two buildings sitting right next to each other, one of them is colonial revival, the Hostess House, and the other is a streamlined modern building. I don't really consider it an Art Deco building, although it has some features similar to it. And they stand in contrast to each other, yet at the same time, here's an architect who really specialized in both of those styles of architecture in his work.
Just as interesting as the design, the company's contribution to the community was notable as well. When we return, we'll learn about a gift that the company made to the Bowling Green community. Welcome back to Warren County Preserves. The Honeycrust Bakery did more than please its neighbors with the smell of freshly baked bread. It also built the Hostess House.
The building was specifically for events. So it's one large room, it has a small office area, and a kitchen, and was made for all types of groups. As a matter of fact, articles when it was open mentioned church groups being able to meet there, civic groups, educational groups, and so on meeting. So it served a very important purpose in those early years when we didn't have a lot of meeting spaces for groups to meet in.
Both the Hostess House and the bakery still exist on Adams Street and are ready for new uses. The location that Honeycrust found so appealing back in 1937 is still a positive attribute for the site.
The location of the Honeycrust Bakery is strategic. I mean, they built that there for a reason. They had a trucking fleet that needed to use that highway, and they could get in and out of town quickly. But its location is strategic again today because Western Kentucky University is expanding in that direction, and I can see a tremendous potential for things like artists being able to use space like that.
The Honeycrust Bakery is but one example of an industry that helped build Bowling Green. The truly exciting thing is that many are still available for use and help create a unique atmosphere for our city. Join us next time as we take a look at the history of our area on Warren County Preserves.